What's up, you beauties? Happy New Year. Welcome to HW Hockey's YouTube channel, episode 25, season 8. I'm your host, Jim Michkov, joined as always by Jack Smith. If you're catching us live on YouTube, make sure to smash the subscribe button, hit the like button. Our goal for today's live show is 100 likes. Make sure you also hit the alert so you never miss a live show. For all the podcast listeners out there, don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcast or Spotify, or you can consume our show wherever you get your podcast. So you're first in line when newest episodes drop. All right, well, it's the last show of 2026, Jack. And Flyers, obviously, a big win in Vancouver last night. And they play tonight as well against the Calgary Flames to round out the calendar year here. You know, things are, I think, looking up. They dropped a tough game in Seattle a few days ago. The first game coming out of the holiday break, which I don't know about you, Jack, but I always sort of expect to be a dud, especially, you know, the team's traveling out west. Seattle's kind of sitting there waiting for them. So not that I expected a loss. I think it's a game that we hoped they would win, or we assumed that they would win, and they lost, you know. So heading into the game last night against Vancouver, we were hoping for a better effort. And man, through the first 10 minutes to maybe even the entire period, things were looking a little rough there. I think they were getting outshot 10-0 at one point. And at that point, Jack, what were you thinking?
I was letting the doubt and the hater part of me creep in a little bit, because I was very upset with the Seattle game. And you make some good points about they're waiting for him and all that, but I'm like, they're just better than Seattle. Like, you had Vladar in net. Like, they are a better team than Seattle. I expected such a better effort than that. And it seemed like with every goal that was scored, they just played less and less and less. So I'm like, they better win in Vancouver. They've already beaten them once. They had the whole hoopla with Quinn Hughes. And I think Vancouver had been playing a little bit better, if I remember correctly, rather. And you see how the game starts. And at some point, I didn't even realize, because they had like one early chance, and then it was like all Vancouver, and it's like, Flyers still looking for the first shot on that. I'm like, are you serious? Like, it's 10 at the time. It was like 9-0. I was like, they haven't even got a shot on that yet. You got to be kidding me. This is the Vancouver Canucks. Like, I'll let you slide against Seattle, a team you're better than. But the Canucks, seriously? This is the game you have Vladar in that, because you're going to have Urson tomorrow? Like, what is going on here? And it's like they had to do their annual thing. They had to just give up the first goal, and then they start playing again. And then they started looking really good. I was like, oh, thank God. And even when they answered back, when they gave up a goal, I think it made it 3-2. And that Michkov to Brink play, immediately after that goal was scored, Michkov gets on the board. I think he had 2 assists the other night. They score right away, 4-2, put it away, 5-2. Grundstrom, who is this guy? Like, he's the one guy who scored in Seattle. I actually had turned the game off at 3-0, like that empty netter, and then like 2 more goals were scored, and one of them was Grundstrom. And I'm like, what's he on? It's like 5 goals in 7 games or something crazy, and he's on first time in his career he's on a goal streak. It's like, how many, is it 5 games or something crazy? Like, it's wild to me, absolutely wild. And we talked about the fourth line, and I'm like, well, you gotta give him some runway. I guess this is why. But much better effort last night, and I'm hoping for the same tonight too. They're a better team. I'm trying to defend them, at least for this season, for what it is. They should beat these kind of teams, and they did that last night. Got back on the right track. Hopefully, they can keep it going.
Yeah, that's for sure. And let's we'll bring up the standings here, because even though that they dropped that game against Seattle, again, it would have been nice if they won. Things would look a little better. They'd have a little bit more room for error heading into tonight against former Flyers Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost. But currently the Flyers sit 3rd in the Metropolitan Division, just a point behind the Islanders with 2 games in hand. And if the Flyers can win tonight, they will be 10 games over Hockey 500 heading into the new year of 2026, Jack. 10 games over 500. I think they have the least amount of regulation losses in the Eastern Conference, which to me means something. It means the Flyers are tough to get 2 points out of on a nightly basis, in regulation anyway. Like, if you're going to get 2 points from the Flyers, they're going to get at least 1-2 almost half the time. As you can see there, 18 losses, 7 have been in the overtime or shootout. So the Flyers are a tough team to get 2 points out of. Are you surprised, Jack, where the Flyers are right now? We're now after Christmas, New Year's Day, New Year's Eve is tonight. 2026 is around the corner. December was looking like a gauntlet sort of a month we were talking about at the end of October. And look, the Flyers didn't they didn't do great this month. Like they didn't fly through this month in flying colors and shining colors, whatever that saying is. But they survived it, right? Like there could have been a lot of, what is this, November? This is December here. Pittsburgh started out a little crappy. Like that homestand wasn't a great homestand. They finished 2-2-2, and they go on the road for 4, and they go 1-2-1. Proceed to win against Vancouver, Chicago, stinker against Seattle. I think they had a stinker against Buffalo in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But currently they're 3 out of their last 4 wins, in 3 out of their last 4 heading into the game tonight.
I mean, as far as where the season started or going into the season, I'm very surprised. But when you look at what they changed from last year to this year, let me know if I'm forgetting anybody, but they essentially moved on from Lawton, who we all love, but also Frost and Farabee, and you've added Dvorak, Zegras, and Vladar. And those 3 players, especially Zegras and Vladar, have been some of your top players on your team. And when I see their play to the team that, obviously Michkov's not having the year he had last year. But when I look at how everybody's play has been, and, they're a frustrating team to watch, but they tend to stay in games and keep it together. And those loser points are, feel about them how you will, but they're really adding up. And then they're taking care of business against certain teams where in years past they wouldn't have done that. It's, I don't know how long it's going to last, but I've been saying that like every time we discuss the standings. I'm shocked because you look at our predictions, I had them nowhere near the playoffs. I had them missing the playoffs. They're clearly in the playoffs. But when I see what they've added and how those players are playing and whatnot, I'm not that surprised. And again, they lost Forrester too. Like he's been out he's obviously out the rest of the season, but they've been without him for a while now, and they're still trucking along. They are. I think in years past they would have just stuck with something and had them try to figure it out. Now they're trying to tweak some things. Like if Zamula's finally not with the not with the Flyers anymore, not with the big club. Grundstrom's been moved into that 4th line. Barkey's come up and provided a spark. Like they're getting what they need to help their team along and what they need. And they're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but certain players are coming in big spots. TK had a really nice goal the other night. And we like to hate on a lot of these guys, and rightfully so in some cases. But at the end of the day, they're still a pretty solid team. And like you said, they're a tough out. They're playing most teams tough. Yes, they're going to have stinkers. Some of the best teams in the leagues have stinkers. But ultimately, I look at how they play, especially once they give up the first goal and they start coming back. Like they're going to give you a bad period here. It's tough to get a full 60 out of them. For the most part, they're going to play some pretty solid hockey. And if you just do that consistently, you're probably going to have a pretty decent record. Now, my only thing with them is when they start to play the really big, good teams in the league. Yes, they've had some good matchups against the Devils and the Islanders. And I actually think they played Carolina pretty well, even though they really didn't come away with any wins anyway. But, I want to see, I look at the top of the league. I want to see how they play against Detroit. I want to see how they play against Montreal again, now that we're more into the season, and Tampa Bay and, things like that. Teams like that, and even some Western teams that are at the top. If they start winning games like that, that'll change how I feel. They got an Edmonton game coming up at Anaheim. They're in a new spot. Thank you for pulling that up. Anaheim is they're looking like us on the West over there. So obviously, as long as they just put Cutter through the glass, I really don't care what happens. But yeah, I want to see how they play against some of these better teams. I'm glad they can take care of business against some of the teams well below them in the standings. That's what playoff teams do. But I also want to see them play really good games, strong games, and win a couple of these games against these better teams higher up in the standings and in front of them. And so if they're chasing, I want to see them beat some of these teams.
Yeah. So they finished up December. They're currently 6-4-4, which, as we said, isn't great, but they survived what I thought was a pretty tough month. Games every other night 3 games, 4 nights, every other week type thing. And it kind of slows down. Well, it doesn't really slow down. This game every other night. They have 2 back-to-backs. So we'll see. In my opinion, the level of competition has dipped slightly this month, but the games are all going to be tough. There's a lot of parity in the NHL this year, which makes for a lot of good, fun games to watch. So we'll see. Having said all this, Jack, there's still a faction of fans out there that hate Rick Tocchet. And look, I think it's on record. Like, the guy that I wanted to hire was Ferschweiler. Rick Tocchet didn't really, I don't think, excited anybody. But and I was I don't think I showed my pessimism as much as I felt it, but I'm like, okay, anytime they bring in a new guy, new coach, new player, new GM, I'm like, okay, well, let's see. I can't really have an opinion until I see what he's doing here. And while I'm still not the biggest Tocchet fan, coach-wise, the team's having success, right? The team is having success, which, maybe, I don't want to say we as fans have gotten away from caring what the team does, or maybe it's a certain faction of fans that don't necessarily believe that what we're watching is sustainable. And maybe that's where the disdain for Tocchet comes in when it comes to Michkov, who I thought looked really good last night, maybe had his best game of the year in terms of playing a full game, played hard every shift.
Well, what was his ice time, Jim?
I think it was less than 14 minutes.
See, it's all that matters.
Yeah. And he even got some guy on Twitter posting how long his shifts are and when he comes off the ice and why. And because I guess Tocchet a few weeks ago said something that Michkov's coming off the ice after 30 seconds, 20 seconds. Yeah, and so there's a fan out there that's displaying his shifts and displaying why he's coming off for a shift. And I guess his point was almost all of them are Tocchet taking him off the ice, which this stuff is just like, dude, you need to get a girlfriend or, make some friends or go outside, pick up a hobby or something. Like, holy crap, man.
Touch grass.
And it's like, look, we saw that Michkov can be very good last year. And even there were even spurts last year where he looked a little gassed, right? Like, I know we have a short memory, especially towards the end of the season. I thought he looked a little out of gas. He never played that many games in a season before, kind of thing. This year, whatever happens, came in out of shape, whatever it was, we don't really know. But he doesn't look quite like himself yet, at least not how he started last season. Last night, I thought he looked more like himself, right? Just giving maximum effort every shift, looked good defensively, was playing along the walls, getting in the mix a little bit, some physical stuff. And he set up 2 guys. He had 2 assists, right? Bobby Brink, all he had to do was sit on the doorstep and wait for the pass. And the first one, I think who did he set up on the first one? It was Noah Cates, right? It was a nice little pass back to Cates, and Cates ripped a shot through. I thought it was his best game of the season so far, Matvei Michkov. If he can continue to build on that, we could be seeing a turnaround here. I think last night, it's fair to say, could have been the turnaround game, the confidence builder for Michkov. Like, he's got the good vibes going. Him and Bobby Brink are getting along well. I've been calling him the Hobbit line, which isn't really fair to Noah Cates. But I have a lot of fun watching Brink and Michkov form a relationship there, form a bond. They're 2 smaller guys, and it's funny watching them talk and getting excited. No offense to smaller guys. I'm just saying I enjoy watching those guys have success together.
No, I mean, and I thought there was a few games like that in the past where he had 2 points where it could be the turnaround game. I hope it is, honestly, obviously. I think that's where the frustration comes in, is like the fans that really didn't want to turn the corner yet because we have a need for center, and there's some high quality centers allegedly coming out this draft. And you know me, Jim, I'm a draft guy, so I'd have been okay with that. But the team made a decision to move forward. They're going to try to win now. And you couple that with Michkov's season to this point, and that's why they hate talking. It's like, they don't really care what the team is doing now because it's still about the future. It's still, and Michkov is a massive part of the future. So if they're winning games now and they're a bubble playoff team, great for them. We're not getting to the Stanley Cup unless Michkov becomes a Michkov we think he's going to be. And I'm not trying to make the argument for them, but I believe it's rooted in that. And the organization made a decision. And I will be critical when they do things wrong that I believe are wrong and that they are actually wrong. And when I look at Briere's track record so far, it's hard for me not to give him the benefit of the doubt on things with the trades he's made. If you want to throw a Cutter Gauthier in my face, you know how I feel about that, who I'm going to aim blame at for that. But other than that, there's not a whole lot I can be upset with. Look, they haven't gotten the center they need. They don't grow on trees. Maybe they came out of their rebuild a little too fast. I actually would be in somewhat agreement with you. That doesn't mean I'm going to, put my head in the sand and just bitch all year about the team because they didn't do it the way I want them to do it. I don't know how you live with yourself doing all that kind of stuff. Like, I want to see improvement, obviously, from everybody. And I think we're seeing like a team that can actually win games, which is huge because we would lose so badly for so long and they would take themselves out of games so quickly. And it's kind of, I'm like, I get it, but Rome wasn't built in a day, this offseason for me, I could become one of these fans next year because this offseason for me, and I'm not talking about free agency because yes, they kind of circled it. They had their eyes on it. We've been led to believe, and now it's gone essentially. But they do need to make a major trade, at least one. I think two, but at least one. And if you're just proving you turn the corner, you're not getting a top draft pick. I don't even know if they should be drafting with this pick. I think it should be used for something. I understand it takes two to tango, but to show us that you're serious about what you're saying, you brought in the coach, you brought in some other players, you've had a winning record. Now go get the I don't want to say missing piece. That's usually the last piece, but like the piece that really brings everything together. And if Zegras isn't going to play center, that's probably the position I'm looking at. But I can't get mad at that now. That hasn't happened yet. Like, I understand the plan. They've literally laid it out for us. So to be upset with how things are going when it's exactly how they laid it out, how it's planned, it's just kind of silly to me. And I think it's just a lot of it's obviously Michkov. It's the Michkov of it all, because of how vital he is. Yeah, and you can't get around that. But it's when you couple it with everything else, it all comes back to that. And I think there's people who are like, look, I don't care if this team finishes dead last and doesn't get a top draft pick. If Michkov has 80 points, then I'm happy. And I get that. But, like, he's not going to win you a championship on his own.
Yeah. So here's how I look at it. We got Zegras a point per game. Leads the team in goals, assists, points.
Nobody even talks. Jim, nobody talks about that. I never see that on Twitter. Never. Right. That's never talked about.
And so who made that trade? Danny Briere. Then next you have Konechny, who, by all accounts, some people say that he still doesn't look like his usual self. And plus 11, 35 points, 12 goals.
Real quick on that, Jim. Again, I'm somebody who was all for trading him and not re-signing him for the rebuild. They signed him. It is what it is. I'm not going to continue to bitch about it. What does that do?
He's producing. Like he's throughout a season, you expect players to get better as the season, or at least I do. I expect them to get better as the season goes on, especially when you have a new coach, new system, things are new. It takes some time to adjust. So, I give everybody a little bit of leeway. I don't know that I'm the kind of guy that really jumps on a player throughout the season, unless it's Morgan Frost, who's, overstayed his welcome by about 3 seasons kind of thing. But I guess what I'm getting at here is like Owen Tippett, 23 points, 38 games, 12 goals. Noah Cates, like really having an outstanding year, 22 points, 10 goals. Bobby Brink, who had a career high 41 points last year, 19 points, 10 goals, playing with Michkov. Like you don't. I think they look at Bobby Brink as a guy that can get somebody going because he has a surprisingly consistent motor. I think like he's going to give effort every single night. And we're going to talk more about Bobby Brink in a little bit here, but the Flyers have 6 players with 10 plus goals. If Dvorak and Michkov score tonight, which, what's the likelihood of that happening? They'll have 8 players heading into 2026 with 10 plus goals, with double-digit goals. Talk about depth. That's 8 of your top 9 scorers with 10 plus goals. And then not even to mention the revelation of Carl Grundstrom, another Danny Briere trade, who they got for the ghost of Ryan Ellis.
What's so funny about that is the last time I remember the Flyers having like 7 or 8 players, they all had like 20 goals throughout the year. You'd have to go back to like when we, what was it? 09, 08-ish. And, we had like the Joffrey Loppels and the, Richards, Carter, Briere, all that. We had like the depth like that. We had like 7, 8 guys scoring 20 goals. They then made the trade for the big piece, which was Chris Pronger, and they went to the Cup. They went to Game 6. I'm not saying that's going to happen with this team, but having a really solid team with depth to begin with that can win on their own, and then you go get the piece like that. To me, that's how you build or start to form the foundation of what could be a championship team. I don't think they're just going to do it all in one day. I think they're going to hopefully make the playoffs, be a perennial playoff participant, and kind of like Carolina, and start to knock their way through the rounds. And I think I think it starts here. I think you have to just pick a point, and maybe they should have waited a year, but I think you have to pick a point where you turn things around and say, we're going to try to win now. The players have management's backing, and they did add. They have to admit they added. They lost Farabee and Frost and Lawton, and they added Zegras, Dvorak, and Vladar. And the team is significantly better. I know there's more to it than that, but come on. They got a coach in here who's ready to win. And I know it's a long road. It's going to be a long road. But like to see how they're playing now, how they're never really out of many of the games they played. I'd say of the 99% of the games they played, they were never really out of any of them. And they just – I like what I'm seeing. I like the point totals we're getting up. I love the high-end skill I'm seeing from Zegras. Obviously it's there with Michkov, but it's going to be – he's 21 years old. It's coming around. I'll be honest with you. I want him to play more. I mean, his freaking jersey's right there. Like, I want him to play more. When I go to the game, I don't want him to leave the ice. I get it, but I also understand it. Is talking a little much? Yeah, he is. I don't think he should be fired because of that. If this continues like into next year when Michkov has a proper, I'll tell you what, when they come back from the Olympic break, if this is as bad as it is, I'm going to start to have issue, especially if Michkov does what he says he's going to do and just train the entire time, essentially get back into better shape, because he is a part of the future and his success is huge. But I don't think it's like people are talking like it's the end of the world. No, like we're going to go back to like the Fletcher Hextall era where we had no nothing. And it's just baffling to me.
What it is, a lot of the kids that are watching now don't remember guys like Couturier and Konechny getting the same treatment when they came into the league. Like a lot of young players go through this, especially like, look, the point I was going to make earlier is they have all these guys contributing right now, and Michkov's not even at his best. I would expect throughout the course of the rest of the season, Michkov finds his game. And I think, last night could have been a spark. Like they're doing all this without Michkov at his best, and I think that's coming. Like you're saying, hopefully after it would be nice if it came sometime during this month, at the very least after the Olympic break kind of thing. But it's going to come. You want to see him get better increasingly as the season goes on, not kind of worse or stuck in the rut. Look, it's fine. He had a slow start. What happened has happened. Let's see the consistent improvement throughout the season. And I we're getting there, I think. Right?
Yes. And I just want to see Tocchet reward Michkov a little bit more with ice time and overtime time. And he has put him out there in a few empty net situations, which I appreciate because I know Michkov he did get a goal, and that tends to help get them going. So, but I want to see more. I do want to see him flashing that offense, and I want because the power play needs improvement too. So I want to see him in these when it's time to score. I want to see Michkov out there, and I want to see him get some time in the third period, especially in a tight game, whether it's putting a team away or tying it up or whatever. And I know he doesn't really trust him right now, but hopefully he starts to creep back into his good graces. And hey, maybe one day we're all laughing about all this.
Yeah. All right, let's move on a little bit here. Let's see where we're at topic-wise. So we did talk about Bobby Brink. We talked about all right. So 2 guys on the team currently, Christian Dvorak. Excuse me. It came out during the week. I think, and Jack, I think you and I talked about this a few shows ago. Signing Christian Dvorak. And my reasonings for that were he's looked great with Trevor Zegras. I think they're the perfect combination, at least. And I get it. Dvorak's not the most skilled center, but coming into the season, that was the pair. Like Dvorak will be able to take faceoffs and cover for Zegras defensively. Zegras will be able to play his game freely. What I didn't expect was for Zegras to raise Dvorak's game offensively. Zegras has become a guy that's so essential. Zegras, in my opinion, is one of the best players you can have. You know why? Because not only will his point totals increase, but he makes players around him better. And that's what he's doing with Christian Dvorak. And now, you'll have people now, because there's contract talks leaking and things like that, say, well, the Flyers could have traded Dvorak and, they could have maximized his value because of Trevor Zegras. And sure, that makes sense. If they trade Dvorak, what are they doing next, do you think, Jack?
I don't know. I would hope using whatever assets they get back in that trade with some of their own assets to get themselves another center, which they just traded away.
Yeah. So you're replacing a guy that you already had. And, I don't know that they would get a better center or not, but you're keeping it's like what's that saying? Bird in the
a bird in the hand.
Bird
in the hand's worth more than 2 in the bush.
Because you know what you got.
Exactly.
Right? You know what you have in Dvorak, and there's chemistry there. Apparently they love him in the locker room. He's close with Tocchet. He's playing well with Zegras. You could put anybody on that line and they'll bust him out of a slump. Konechny's he's gotten going. I can't remember who they had on that line before. I think it was Tippett. Tippett was going with them. Like, those guys just work. And look, I get all the arguments. He's a little older. When you hear contract extension, everybody has PTSD for signing vets. But, my hope is that it's no more than a 3-year deal. Any more than 3. And then there's some worry there. Why are we signing Dvorak till he's 34, 35 years old? But in a perfect world, there's nothing wrong with a 3-year, whatever. I think it was rumored 5.5. We were saying, like, I'd be okay with 6 for Dvorak. 3 years, $6 million per. Nothing wrong with that until some of these other guys get going. Luchanko, who we'll talk about in a little bit. Nesbitt might have a little bit longer runway. I don't know. But they need a guy. And he works well with Zegras, who we want to come back. He hasn't signed yet. It's not guaranteed he'll be here. He's an RFA, but yeah, so I'm just like, well, you know what you have? You have a center that plays well defensively, works well with your best player. Makes sense to bring him back for a few years. Look, as long as it's not 4 or 5, like I already said. What are your thoughts, Shaq?
So it's just one of those things. Like, what are you doing going forward if you don't? Look, if he prices himself out from you, that's a different story. But first off, teams going for a playoff spot, going for the playoffs, who've told everybody they're going to try to win now. If they would have turned around and trade a guy in a playoff race, that would just you can't trust anything they say. And it's a big, F you to their own team. So I don't even know why that's still being discussed. Like, we've moved on from that. He's a guy that has always played well with Tocchet. I think his only down years were, like, I think Montreal didn't get what they thought they were going to get out of the guy. So he's come here. He's been one of our better players. I argue one of our best for what his role is. And we overpaid, obviously, because it was 1 year. And I look at, like, how the cap is going up and where our money is allocated and what we need and what's not available in free agency. I mean, this guy was lining himself up to be one of, if not the best center available. And when I first heard extension, I'm like, oh, geez, they're going to, $7 million at 5 years, until he's 36 or something crazy like that. And I saw the rumors like 3 years, $5.5 million. I'm like, I could definitely live with that considering where their team's at. And if they're going to make a trade for somebody and prospects are involved, I tend to believe Luchenko is a name that'll be involved. I don't know for sure. They are weak at the center position, obviously, but it just is the name that comes up and in certain trade scenarios, and it just makes sense. And you're going to need centers. You don't have any, like, outside of what, Coots? Like, Zegras isn't playing center. Cates could be better served at wing if you needed him to. His face-off percentage is about as good as Zegras's. Maybe a slightly better. What does that do for you? Like none of these guys like really move the needle for me at the center position. And Dvorak at times has been your 1C this season, and you're going to get him at 5.5 for a couple of years. Like, does that really bother you? 3 years? Are we maxed out at our cap? No, not even close. So if it was anything longer, really, or more money, I was surprised when I saw those numbers. I was like, I'd do that. If that's what it comes out, I'd be fine with that. I can live with that. It's also a tradable contract if you had to down the road, so I think people just think it's more mediocrity, and I understand that, but what's your alternative? I think there's a world where they re-sign Dvorak and they still make a trade for somebody. That's exactly what they should do. If they if we go into next season and all they've done is bring back Zegras and Dvorak and I don't know, maybe a small piece here or there, I have a massive issue with that. But it's the other part I'm more concerned with. It's not this. This is a stabilizing piece until the other guys come along, which, what is Barkey going to be your center? Do you really see him as an NHL center? And if he is, it's going to be a couple of years, I would think. And he's nowhere near being able to play with your top dogs. Yeah, he's a nice
Luchenko or Nesbitt.
Well, those so to me, because Barkey's here now. I'm thinking in the short term, like where that would span these 3 years if we were to resign him. Because to me, Nesbitt's not going to be here at least 2 years, maybe 3. He's so far long he's like a project. They knew that when they drafted the guy. I don't see him being here. If he is here, I think it'll be after this Dvorak contract, say it is 3 years, is up and done. We'll see with Berglund. I don't think I can live just on his WJC performance. I think he's going to need a little bit more than that. And Luchenko, I don't know, man. Is Luchenko really doing it for you? Like, I mean, I like him as a prospect, but do I expect he'll be here next year? Like he'll be, I don't know. He was put on that Canada team and he's like third line winger. And the guys drafted ahead of him are playing center on a higher line. So I'm not saying I'm not out on him, but he's kind of a project within himself. He was a young draftee and it's not like he's exploding. So I just feel like these guys are going to take longer than we think if we don't trade some of them. That what is their option at center? Like they have one right now. You need 4 of them. They have one right now. I don't see that big trade coming. Hopefully this summer, or maybe this trade deadline, although that'd be shocking. I don't understand what the pivot plan is to not keeping this guy that's working for you now.
Yeah, I'm good with it. I like Dvorak. I enjoy watching him. I get the look. They said in the beginning of the year they're not looking to trade guys out anymore, right? And even though that 1-year deal and Dvorak's the perfect trade candidate, yada yada, they said they weren't going to do it. And so, okay, well, what's the alternatives here? Either you let the guy walk after the season, or you bring a guy back that's working out, and it's working out. It doesn't sound like he's going to want $7-8 million. I think the Flyers did him a favor, overpaying him for the year, and said, let us try to, see what we're doing here. You're with Tocchet. If you like it here, we'll sign you for, however much. And if you don't like it, you have a good year, you can go get paid somewhere else.
There you go.
Sometimes building, sometimes when you become comfortable at a place and you end up liking it, what would you rather do? Would you rather be comfortable and stay at a place that you like to be? Or would you rather chance leaving for more money and not having the same, comfortability kind of thing? So I wonder if it was like that kind of thing. Like, hey, we'll bring you in for a year. If you like it here, Let's get something done. If you don't, we'll move you at the deadline, whatever it is. And it's working out,
A perfect example of the question you just asked, and he has said this live, is Billy Lano. When he left Philly for Buffalo, he left for money, obviously, and it ended his career essentially. Like, I don't even know if he finished that contract. And he's like, I had an offer with the Flyers. I should have stayed. Things were working here. I liked it here. I liked the coaching, the teammates, everything. And I chased the money. And I was out of the league not long after that. And I'm not saying Dvorak be out of the league, but sometimes being in a situation where things work and you're happy and comfortable, it may be worth staying and not taking the extra money. That's why I looked at the numbers. I was surprised. I thought with also him being potentially the best center available, but he might get some team to bite and give him like 5-6 years at 6-7 mil. Seems ridiculous, but we've seen crazier, and he might ask there and meet somewhere a little bit lower than that or something, which is, in my opinion, a big risk and an overpayment. But like, for what we'd be paying him short 3 years, I think we should be able to figure out in 3 years our center position. We can even add and still make it work. We have so many wingers. Somebody's going to get traded. You have Martone coming. We talk about this all the time, how many wingers they have, and people need to be moved, the Brinks, and all that. And it's like, but you still need a center. You can't force any of these wingers to play center. You need somebody. Even if you trade for a center, you need more. You're going to go, say you did get like a Robert Thomas, right? So you're going to go with Robert Thomas. Say you don't have Dvorak because you don't keep him. So who are your other centers? You're going to go with Coots and Cates and who? Hubbles? Like, is that better on the top end? Sure. But like, your center depth is still weak, still very weak. So I just think this is just, for the price and for the years, I think it's a smart move.
Yeah. There's a comment about Dvorak's raise there. Where did I see his contract? So his previous contract was 4.45, and the Flyers gave him 5.4 for this year.
Yeah.
I think it was 5.4.
It was, because we all thought it was 4.5. Actually, it was reported that way. It was reported 4.5, and then he came back out. I'm sorry, wrong way, 5.4. Elliot Friedman. So that's how I remember that, 5.4.
So if he gets, if they give him 5, I doubt he's going to take $100,000 raise. But again, I think there's some kind of gentleman's agreement thing worked in.
3 years of commitment too.
Just my own
overpaid.
Speculation. Right,
he was overpaid to begin with, and now he's getting more money and commitment.
Right, exactly that. Yeah, so I just kind of wonder if there's some kind of handshake deal where if things go well, we're not going to give you the 6.57. Even if they give him 6, fine. The cap goes up, whatever. So I don't think it's an egregious raise or whatever, like our buddy Flyers Purgatory is saying in there.
Well, it's just, to me, it's like, who's he blocking? Like, what's the problem? Like, if he's just here for now because he works until the next we figure it out, like, I don't understand. Somebody's got to play center. Somebody has to play center for this team. And that I'm not a Couturier hater, but my God, is there a lot of hate on Coots out there? Some of it warranted, and it's like, he's not going to get any better for you. He is who he is at this point. I think he's best served in the bottom 6 role as a center if you have, top guys at the top. And Cates is a nice piece, but do you see him as more? And he's having a nice year, but I really think he's still a better served as a bottom 6 player who maybe jumps up when you have an injury. So, like, who are your top 2 centers? Like, one of them's got to be Dvorak for now. And you're not blocking anybody because you still need more centers. It's only 3 years. That's nothing. So I think it's not even – I don't even think it's the contract, money, or the years. I just think it's a mediocre, in their eyes, player, and it's going to be more of purgatory, to be honest with you. I hate to say it, but more of finishing in the middle, drafting 13th, drafting 17th, never getting any better. I think that's what they see, a guy like Dvorak resigning, and I think that's where the mind goes. And I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the full picture, unless the front office doesn't come through and add that top-tier talent.
Yeah. All right, on the flip side of this, Igor Zamula was waived, I think it was last week now, and reported to Lehigh Valley. Last I checked, he had 2 assists in 2 games, so he's playing in games, whatnot. We know that he's not happy with the situation and whatever. Switched agents.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, right. Like, oh, Igor Zamula is upset. Not happy with the situation here. Feels he's an NHL player, should be playing in the NHL. That's fine. Good for him. It's not for the Flyers. Flyers actually did him a favor. He was an undrafted free agent. He carved out an NHL career, I guess somewhat of a name for himself with the Flyers. They did him all the favors they could. He doesn't fit anymore. So, Zamula is looking for an out. I think what I read was the Flyers are exploring any possibility to recoup any assets in a trade before sort of cutting the cord there, like what happened with Alexander Texier, where he went from, I think it was St. Louis to Montreal. They just released him outright. So, that's the situation with Zamula now. I think his days with the Flyers are done. And I hate to say good riddance, but it's been over for a while, and it just I don't want to say that he can't do it. I think he just is what he is, kind of thing. So Igor Zamula, Jack, seems like his Flyers tenure's coming to an end here.
I'm not going to lie to you, Jim. I think it's kind of comical. I don't understand. Like, he's demanding a trade and looks for other opportunity. I'm like, what in your play makes you think you're even an NHL player? Like, you want another opportunity elsewhere? Sure. But like, it's like this big deal that he's being sent down. Like I'm seeing tweets like innuendo that like the Flyers are kind of telling his agent, like, you see, nobody claimed him, which nobody did. I mean, like, isn't that telling? Like, I don't understand. Is this a situation where the guy is so high on himself, or his agent's so high on his client or something? Like, are they not seeing the same games we did? That little, time period where he was doing some scoring on the power play? Is he hanging his hat on that? Like, he's just not a consistent enough defenseman, even in this lineup. Like, he just doesn't have it. Why is this? Like, I feel like it's being made a bigger deal than it should be. Everybody's been calling for Zamula's head for a while now.
Yeah, I think it's a bigger deal for the player since he's been up in the NHL for the last however many seasons. But, watching him play, there's no slower player on the ice on any given night than Igor Zamula. Just slow with decisions, just slow in movement. I'm sure he's a nice guy. Maybe he's fun to be around, whatever it is, but just slow. There's no other way to put it. He's slow. Like, when I watch him live, I'm like, okay, he knows the right play. He has the time. He has the space. Make the play. Make the play. What are you waiting for? Make the play. And it just takes so long that by the time he makes the play, whatever was there is gone.
Right.
And God forbid you pressure him with the puck. It's going to be a turnover. So, it was time. They have better players. They have a bigger player in Juleson. They have Andres up, who should have been on there to start the beginning of the season. I'm not sure what was going on with that, Rick Tocchet. But I digress. He's seeing the light. Andres taking his spot. Sealer's here. Ristolainen's healthy again. There's nowhere for Zamula. And so, good riddance.
Yeah, he's just blocking other guys at this point. They've bent over backwards to try to keep him in the NHL and give him a shot. Mm-hmm. And it feels like the responses are like almost spiteful in a way. It's like, he ain't good enough. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, no, we got bigger fish to fry. Like, if we get something back from him, great. It's good asset management, but like, I have no love lost here. Like, it's Zamula, for God's sake. Like, yeah. I go back years, people putting him in our like projected lineup when we're like ready to win, and he's in. I'm like, I don't see that in Zamula. Where's this coming from? And he had some spurts, but that's it. Like, yeah. I'm kind of glad. Let's move on. Like, Jesus.
Yeah, I wish him the best, but just not happening here.
Right.
All right, a couple more things to get to here, and where do you want to start with? A rumor first, Jack, or a prospect sort of analysis? So I do want to talk about Luchenko, and I obviously want to talk about the Ryan Hartman link to the Flyers again. Bobby Brink going the other way. Which one do you want to talk about?
Let's do the Hartman one real quick, because that's we do we don't get to the other one.
And this is a little interesting now, since now there's talks about signing Dvorak, and I think they have to wait until tomorrow or the 2nd if there is a deal that's going to get done. But they leaked that there's talks, number one. And this coming after the Flyers have been linked to Minnesota. This is going on at least 2 seasons now, Bobby Brink to Minnesota. And I think this is the first time that Ryan Hartman's come up. And I think he's playing center up there. He wasn't getting as many minutes. I can double check that, Jack. And while I check, what are your thoughts on these rumors?
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. He's not a true center. He may be playing center. Isn't he like 30 years old, 31, something like that?
Yeah, 31, yep.
Why are they trading how old's Brink? 24?
So he's listed right wing. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I don't know if he's still playing center. I think at one point he was centering Kaprizov, but I don't know if that's still a thing.
Yeah, and I don't think his points total is all that impressive, if I remember correctly. And I don't understand why they would be trading a young player for a 31-year-old decent guy who could play center if they need to. What is the game plan here? Like I don't understand the idea behind giving up Brink for this player.
So, all right. So let's say Hartman does play right wing. And not that I'm not attached to Bobby Brink. It is fun. Like I find myself enjoying his success more than some of these other players just because he's kind of goofy. He's undersized. So when he succeeds, I'm kind of like, good for him. You know what I mean? He's one of those guys for me.
Yeah.
Having said that, 19 points, 38 games, 10 goals, 9 assists. We know that he's undersized. He's listed at 5'8". And you know that when a guy's listed 5'8", he's probably smaller than that, right? So we've heard the Flyers want size. And Bobby Brink's playing in the bottom 6, third line. While Hartman's not lighting it up wherever he's playing in Minnesota, 15 points, 9 goals, 6 assists in 36 games. We've seen him play. He's got a little bit of snarl to his game. He can lay a big hit. I haven't watched Ryan Hartman since he's been in Philly, but I assume that he plays a similar style still. We know that he's got some grit. He can be a dickhead to play against. And we know that he can, he's got some scoring touch. First round pedigree, 30th overall back in 2013. Is it a trade that I would be excited for? No. Do I understand why it could happen? Yeah, I think I do. The age difference is massive. But like we're saying, the Flyers are going to have to open up spots pretty quickly here. And let me look at Brink's contract here. Let me look at both players' contracts because it could be an example like we need to get bigger. We want to get a little meaner on the bottom 6. So we're going to move out Brink for Hartman. We know we're not going to bring Brink back. So let's bring in Hartman for however long his contract is for, and let's move on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand the thought process, but the Flyers really in that position. We're trading out young players for 31, 2-year-olds now. Like, I don't think we're there. We're not. That's not the position that we're at. That's something a team that's like, it has their star players are in the playoffs. They start doing things like that. Brink still has value. He's a young, talented player who could get better. He's proven he's gotten better every year, particularly with his skating. And we're going to just move him for a 31-year-old guy to give us some grit. Like, I could see it happening, but not where the Flyers are today. Go ahead.
So here's another thing. So Bobby Brink is on the second year of a 2-year deal. Yeah, he's an RFA, but he's making 1.5 now. What's he going to want, in the summer? I would say it's probably going to be around $3 million. Ryan Hartman's making $4 million now and for next year, and can flex between right wing and center. Look, I'm not saying that I want Ryan Hartman. I'm trying to rationalize why this could be a deal they're exploring, why it could make sense. I don't think they want to bring Bobby Brink back for next year. I think they want to make a spot, for Martone, quite frankly. And if Hartman's here, he's a guy that can flex in your fourth line. If they're looking for a fourth line center, he can flex into your third line. So I think he's a guy that can move around the lineup. Yeah, he's making $4 million for the next season and a half, but he's a guy that is going to be here, more veteran presence. He adds a little bit of, he's mean. I feel like he sort of has the same mentality as Dvorak kind of thing, or I don't know. I could see how it makes sense. Where if you look at the Flyers roster, it's a lot of nice guys on the roster. You know what I mean?
No, I
So
know. I
don't
get what you're
know.
saying. I like that kind of player, and the team could use a player like that. I just don't think the team is at a point where they could be trading young, but players who can get better, who have value. And it's a winger for winger deal essentially. I would rather, if I'm all for moving Brink, this is not the deal I envisioned Brink being moved in. It feels very like, we're gonna have all these wingers and we're gonna move them and we got Ryan Hartman. What? Why? Like I just it's very confusing to me. And you explained it beautifully. I just don't think they're, and I would like a player like that, but for what we'd be giving up and the reasons around that, I'd rather sign Brink to whatever extension he's going to get, and you could still move him. Like you're not married to it. And he's a guy, he's got interest in the league. Why can't we, make this into a bigger deal with somebody else, particularly in the offseason when these things can be more available? There's a lot of teams in the league, and there's a lot of teams go through transition. You can't find somebody else. You have to make this move today. It just seems odd to me. It just seems odd. I hope it's more of a Flyers like Hartman, Minnesota likes Brink, but the trade isn't really there, because I just don't think you do that. At least not now. If we were in a different situation, if we're pushing for a playoff spot and we need to do, okay, maybe do something like that. But how many, and I'm not saying Brink's going to be this guy, but I remember Bobby Clark doing that. And he traded away some good players like Patrick Sharp to get like a guy like that to play to win now, who wasn't really all that much better, but was more of a veteran presence. And, if you're going to trade a guy like that, I would really, and he meshes so well with the team, and he's gotten better every year. That's who we're trading for. I would be very disappointed. I really would.
Yeah. I don't know what Brink's value is around the league, but like I said, he's one of those guys you kind of root for a little bit, or he's one of those guys when, like I said, when they score, you're a little extra happy for whatever reason. I don't know why. I think it's just his face. But yeah,
he does look. I was getting myself in trouble.
Yeah. Okay.
He looks funny.
All right. So maybe how long are we in here? We are 52 minutes. Jet Luchenko, Jack, has been the talk of Flyers Twitter throughout this World Junior Tournament, and maybe it's for good reason. It was the Flyers traded back to draft him instead of drafting Zeev Bouillon, who was just used in a trade to acquire Quinn Hughes. And fans are expecting more from Luchenko, which is absolutely 100% fair, right? So I'm going to preface with that. I'll also say that these World Junior tournaments are just blown incredibly out of proportion. And I'm going to tell you why I think that is. Obviously, you want to see your players score points, right? Because it makes you feel good. Like, okay, this guy's doing what he's supposed to do, kind of thing, yada, yada. And, since I started actually really watching players like shift by shift and that kind of thing, like there's so much more that goes into development than scoring points. Scoring points a lot of the time is the result of doing a lot of little things right throughout a shift, throughout a game. You know what I mean? Points, goals, and assists are sort of the reward for doing a lot of little things right, is what I'm trying to say. And when watching Jet Luchenko, he does a lot of little things right throughout a shift. And in the games that I watched, I was able to watch the Czech game and the Latvia game. I didn't finish watching the Denmark game because it was a 9-1 beatdown. How much are you really going to take away from watching a guy play 15 minutes against Denmark in a 9-1 win? I would rather watch him in a close game against the Czechs or Latvia and see how he does in games like those. But anyways, the Czech game for Luchenko, for me, was a little concerning. And the reason why is because he looked a little bit out of sorts. I don't know. I don't think it was because of lack of confidence, or maybe it could have been because of lack of confidence. He was playing, if I'm not mistaken, a bottom six role with players that he hasn't played with before, in a position that he doesn't play. So it would take anybody time to get familiar. Now, I know they had 2 games and practices and whatnot leading up to this, but when the lights are really turned on and the Czechs give Canada some problems, he didn't look right. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He didn't look confident. But what you want to see from a prospect throughout a game, throughout a tournament, throughout a season, you want to see him get better. And in the Latvia game, I saw that. I saw his confidence grow. He looked like he was more, he knew where he was supposed to be on the ice kind of thing. Maybe it was because the opponent was a little lesser, even though Latvia gives Canada problems too these days. He looked better to me. He looked more like himself. And they were generating some offense. And there was a couple chances where his teammates didn't finish, where if they did, we're talking about Luchenko's got 2 points in 2 games or 2 points in 3 games, whatever. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's going to be a star, because when they drafted him, his ceiling was 2C, right? But his floor was always 3C, which unfortunately is the way that Brent Flair drafts. He drafts for safe floor, unfortunately, right? And I know there's comments here from Vinny, Michael Hage, and whatnot. But I would counter with this: the coach of Team Canada, I think, how do we know that he doesn't like bigger players? I know Luchenko is listed 5'10", 5'11". I'll tell you right now, he ain't touching 5'10". He ain't. He's a smaller dude. How do we know that he doesn't want bigger guys, bigger bodies? Porter Martone's a monster. He doesn't want more physical. He wants to dominate in the top 6, pure offense. Jet has offensive skill, but he's one of the better forwards on that roster defensively, right? So where he's put now is in defensive position. The third line is not a scoring, and I'm not making excuses. I'm just trying to tell you guys what I see from my perspective. He's playing with Cole Reshny and Braden Coots. Braden Coots, another center, playing out of position on the right side. Luchenko, a center, playing out of position on the left side. Cole Reshny's got 2 goals this year, 18 assists. So he ain't lighting up the score sheet either, goals-wise. So between the 2 of them, Luchenko and Reshny, they're 2 similar players, smaller in stature, playing with Coots, who's playing out of position. Why are we expecting them to score goals every shift? That's not a goal-scoring line. They look out of sorts. Some of this has to do with how he's being deployed. And if we're going to argue Michkov can't get off the third line and that's why he's not producing, he needs more minutes, why don't the same rules apply to Jet Luchenko? Nobody can answer that. There's nothing wrong with him as a player. Look, he's played on 4 teams, 5 if you count Canada. 5 teams in less than a calendar year, Jet Luchenko. There's no continuity there. There's no familiarity with players, coaches, systems. He's played for the Phantoms. He's played games with the Flyers. He's played for Brantford. He's played for Guelph. He's played for Team Canada. And this all sounds like excuses, but this will throw any prospect development off. So give him time. Let him develop continuity. I don't give a shit if he doesn't light up the tournament in the World Junior Classic, because you know who did, Jack? Morgan Frost had a great World Junior Classic, right? And all we heard was he was the next coming of Christ for however long he was with the Flyers. So points, while they're nice to look at, and they show you that a player is, finishing shifts, finishing plays, having success, they're not the end-all, be-all in player development. There's a lot that goes into, is the player being put in a position to succeed? Is he being put in a position to generate offense? They're averaging like 12, 13 minutes a night, and their first 2 lines are powerhouse lines offensively. So I get it, or I think fans who don't normally watch prospects, this is their one chance to watch Luchenko and Martone. And if they're not seeing what they want to see, and the Flyers drafted Luchenko 13 or 14, they want to see goals and assists from the Flyers' high draft pick, their top center. And when it's not happening, I get it. People are going to start asking questions. but it's not a barometer of how good of a prospect is he. There's a lot of factors to go in. Why isn't this kid succeeding? And it's not because he's not a good player. So I just wanted to get that out. That was a lot.
That was pretty good, Jim. I mean, it's weird. Like, my thoughts on Luchenko is really has nothing to do with World Juniors. The roster setup was somewhat telling, but you may be right. You may have just explained what that was. For me as a player, I was very critical at the time for multiple reasons, not just the player himself. People talk like Luchenko like he was a second-round pick, or he was a projected second-round pick, and that's not true. Like, he was in the late teens, early 20s, some a little bit further back than that. But like, he was overdrafted, but not by as much as people think. And I understand Boyum and even Hellenius and how good those players look. But Luchenko is a project. He was young. He's going to take time before he gets here. And he's had some sparks. Like, he's already played some NHL games, but I think those reasons for not because he impressed as much as you would have thought. I think that the certain aspects of his game, certain coaches and management may have liked. And I do think the silly rule with the AHL is why he's bouncing around juniors and all that, obviously. But it would not surprise me if he's next year with Lehigh Valley. And it's a slow process, whether he comes up next year at some point during the season or he spends a full year in the AHL. I don't expect him to make the team out of camp. I truly believe that. But that doesn't mean he's going to be a bust. It just means that it's going to be a slower grow. It's going to be a slower way about it, which is why I think a Dvorak signing makes sense, because I don't see any centers coming from our own prospect pool anytime soon. And I also think that teams around the league see it in this very same way, which is why if a certain trade package were to come along, while I agree with what Jim said, there would be no love lost if he was involved in that deal. I would be told, depending on the deal, obviously, but if it brought in a Robert Thomas or somebody else, God forbid a Tage Thompson or whoever else was available, I could definitely live with that. And maybe I am a little bit down on him just from what I've seen and what other players have done, but I'm trying to stay somewhat centered. I don't want to fall into the Twitter cesspool where just hate everything. It was a horrible pick, fire Danny. But, I can kind of see it from both sides, but at the same time, it's still very much a wait and see. This is not a finished product and we have our answer by any stretch of the imagination. So from that perspective, I do agree with you.
Yeah, and look, I'm not saying like, I don't know, people can think whatever they want, but I just think the World Juniors are just blown completely out of proportion when it comes to prospects. There's a lot of factors, I guess is what I'm saying. Look, I fully expect him to compete for a roster spot out of camp next year. I thought last year was way too early. I thought this year didn't need to play for the Flyers this year. Give him some time to cook. I assume he's going to get some AHL time at some point, which is fine. He showed that he can hang in the AHL. He even looked pretty good in the AHL. What he's missing right now, in my opinion, is some confidence. I think somebody in the comments said he needs some bravado. He just needs someone to pump his tires a little bit. And I just wonder if the lack of confidence comes from sort of being bounced around a little bit, because that's what can happen to a prospect.
Well, you described him as a little bit of a slow starter. Like, he's got to get used to it and get better as the tournament went on. You said he was getting better. If you're getting bounced around, you're going to have to start over and slowly get better. So that could have something to do with it as well.
Yeah. I mean, imagine playing for 4 different teams in a span of 6 months.
Yeah.
Where's this? There you go. Somebody said it there, John. He keeps commenting on my jacket. Thank you. Stability and encouragement. That's what stability can go a long way. Once you're able to get a little comfortable and, it's the same thing every day, the same people, the same teammates, coaches, same message, you're able to maybe get that confidence back. So I'm not worried about Luchenko at all.
Well,
what he's being asked to do, he's doing it well.
A lot of it's the other players that were drafted around him. And I get it. Like, look, we complained about it then, a couple months. I'm not going to keep bringing it up. I don't see the point. If Boyum, oh my God, whenever I need to say it, Boyum does well in Vancouver now, good for him. I don't, we are where we are. Nothing's going to change. We had our time to complain about it. And I think people like to say, well, Danny screwed up. was like, all right, well, maybe he did. Well, I don't think that's by any stretch of the imagination a foregone conclusion at this point, but there's also plenty to point to that Danny did right. I don't think any GM is going to do everything 100% right. So at the very least, can we wait it out? So we'll see what we got. We knew with his age and whatnot, it was going to be a slow burn. But I think anytime there's an opportunity to see where your prospect ranks or even performs, and he's not really ranking high or performing well, you just, the criticism is going to come in tenfold, and it all goes back to draft night, honestly. And it's just going to be one of those things forever. And I get it. There's some people who don't believe he's going to be anything. And you said it yourself. He's, you got a guy, he's a 2 C's a ceiling and a 3 C's a floor. And you said that was very unfortunate. And I get, it is what it is. And it could be the case. And when you draft safe, you tend not to get these studs. It doesn't mean he's not a useful player. Doesn't mean it's not something we use in a trade package. So I don't know. I don't understand the point of getting this riled up about it. I guess that's where, when you had it on the thing for the show, I just was like, is it that bad? And I do kind of remember seeing some stuff. I just didn't realize it was getting out of control with the World Junior stuff.
Yeah. And I didn't want to say it like this because I don't mean it in an offending way, because it's not like the fans that are watching are casual. I think it's just the expectation of seeing your top draft picks finally, right? Because it's hard to watch them play in the Canadian League or, wherever they're playing. Maybe you can't watch the college games, what have you. So this is your one and only chance for the year to watch Luchenko, to watch Martone, to watch Heikkinen or Rohonen and Berglund. And, if your guy's not doing well, you might overreact. So I get it, but it's only a few games. There's a lot that goes into it as well.
It's overreacting, but it's like every chance they get, like any opportunity, it's like they jump all over it. And I'm like, I'm not saying I love the guy by any stretch, but Jesus, man, like, don't we understand? Like, people still talk about trading Dvorak. I'm like, the team said they're not going to do it before the season started. They're not doing it. Why are we having this conversation? Whether or not you want to extend him, okay, that's a conversation. Well, obviously, we'll see what happens, but I want to know how you feel about it now. As far as the trading stuff, it's not happening.
Yeah, I mean, when you draft, there's this word. It begins with a D. It's called development, and this is all part of it. There's ups and downs in development, and if you want to view this as a down point or whatever, what that means to me is the up is coming. So at least that's how I think of things, because I believe in Luchenko as a prospect. I think he's a very good player. If we're talking about a down slope, to me, that only means the upslope is coming. So I don't know if that makes me toxically positive.
There's an interesting.
But I think he's a good player, and he's going to find his way out of whatever's going on. So
you're oxymoron right there. Toxically positive.
Yeah. Well, you heard it. I stole it from Toxic Empathy, right? So toxic positivity, I guess. But I like the player. I think the upswing's coming, so I'm not worried.
Yeah, I mean, he's young. It is what it is. I don't know. You're never going to see me lose my mind over it. But again, if they traded him, I'm not going to slam I can't believe they traded him. Sure. I'm right. I feel like I'm right where I should be. So I think you are too, to be honest. You just see this and you kind of roll your eyes.
Right. Yeah. And like you said, if he was involved in a deal, I wouldn't be upset about it, depending on who they got back. But
as it was for Ryan Hartman, then I'd be upset.
Right, of course, yeah. But there's positives to Luchenko. Is all I'm saying. So okay, all right. So we're wrapping up, Jack. Want to pop out the read?
Yes, let's knock out the read. I saved a comment I thought was funny. I'll read it to you afterwards. All right, you ready?
Ready.
All right, guys, quick timeout, because if you're a diehard Philly fan, you need to hear about this. Fans of Philly is the ultimate way to hit the road with the Birds, the Flyers, the Phils, or even the Sixers. We're talking full travel packages, your hotel, your transportation, and yes, the tailgates that are basically legendary at this point. all taken care of for you. No stress, no scrambling for tickets, no worrying about where you're staying. You just show up, throw on your jersey, and enjoy the ride with your fellow die-hard Philly fans. So whether it's flying out to see the Eagles take over an opponent's arena, cheering on the Flyers in enemy territory, or making it a full weekend getaway for your Phillies and Sixers games, Fans of Phillies has you covered. Trust me, this is the closest you'll get to feeling one of the players when they roll into town, because the takeover is real. So check them out Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and start planning your next Philly sports road trip today. That's Fans of Philly, fansofphilly.com, where every away game feels like a home game.
All right, great stuff. Paid the bills. All right, you said you had a comment here.
Yeah, I was trying to get caught up on everything. I couldn't read everything. You were doing a little bit better job with the as they came in. I was getting caught up, but this one was at some point it made me laugh. This is I saw Robert was on the trade Dvorak, and I appreciate you listening. Appreciate you commenting. I don't think you were disrespectful anyway. It's you're entitled to your opinion, obviously. But he said, "Man, the more I listen to shows like this, the worse I feel about this team. The Flyers really never will be good again." Obviously cynical, but I found it funny. I'm like, is it because we were? Hold on, Flyers made a trade. Hold on, breaking news. Not big. It doesn't look like it's big.
Frank for Hartman.
We have acquired Philip Tomasino from Pittsburgh in exchange for defenseman Igor Zamula.
I'm happy with that. They got another winger for the Phantoms, and it's Italian at that. I like Tomasino.
There you go. How about that? Live right after the read, and the comment kept us live too.
Perfect
so just
timing.
Like
Breaking
that,
news.
Zamula is bye-bye. Yeah, I don't care. Like whatever. I'm glad he moved on.
You know what that does is Tomasino now takes, as long as he reports to Lehigh Valley, which I'm pretty sure he will. Tomasino, I wonder if he takes Barkey's spot, or at the very least, Grundstrom's spot down there. So interesting.
People love your jacket. So there you go. There's that saga comes to an end. Thank God, because I don't care. But no, Zamula was a good guy. It just was silly to me. But anyway, back to the comment real quick. And what do you think the reason for this comment is? Do you think it's because
I was going to say, if you listened 2 weeks ago, I'm talking about how I made peace with never seeing the Flyers win a cup. So I guess it's all on which episode you tune into there, Rob.
I read a couple of comments that said we're a fanboy show, and I'm like, I remember for years like destroying this team, but whatever. I appreciate it all the same. I guess it's because it's like in a way an acceptance of mediocrity, and to me, I'm not accepting anything. It is what it is. This is where they are. This is what they told us. I'm not going to create scenarios that are never going to happen. This is where we sit. So look, I know one thing that will change this for everybody: if they make a freaking move for a top talent, star player, whatever, whoever, at center or defense. I would hope center. If once they do get that guy and make that move, and it's gonna happen, it's a part of the plan. Once it happens, it'll change everything. I truly believe that. You just got to do it. Until they do it, is what it is.
I like Mr. Twitzer there. I'm gonna read that, and then we can sign off here. If you give up hope and just enjoy the pretty colors, you'll be much happier.
Wait, is that from Mario?
I have no idea.
Oh my God. I'm not sure. It sounds very familiar to this funny character in the Mario movie. No idea. But yeah, essentially. Look, it is what it is. I've been following this team my whole life, but we've been doing the show, 8 years?
Yeah.
It's a lot better now than it was. I will say that.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, Jack, but I'm a little horned up for 2026. I'm excited to see what this team does. It feels like we're getting close to that time where they make that big deal, right? Where they make that big trade. So I'm horned up. I'm in. I'm bought in. The Eastern Conference is mediocre. Let's make some noise. Let's see what they can do. Why wait for teams to catch up again? Now's the time. Make the move. And look, I'm going to drop this on you now for a little cliffhanger for the next episode.
Oh, snap.
Don't look now, but Steven Stamkos has refound his scoring form. So just something to think about heading into next week. But if, I'm just going to leave it at that. Okay.
You
So
pissed off a lot of people.
let's sign off now with that.
Oh,
All right. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thanks everyone who tuned in for the year of 2025 and who subscribed in 2025, interacted with us, hung out with us in the chat. We really appreciate you guys. You guys are the reason we do this. You make this so much fun, and we enjoy talking to you guys and spending an hour at least each week with you guys. If you enjoyed our episode today, make sure to subscribe and help us on our quest for now 2,500 YouTube subscribers. Give us the like. Our like goal for the episode is 100, so you can help us hit 2 goals heading into the new year. And leave a comment for us on YouTube. Let us know what you thought of the episode, much like Robert did there. If you're listening as a podcast, you can find us on Apple Podcast or Spotify. Set alerts so you're the first in line. So you're the first to know when we drop a new show. And for all of our latest episodes, head over to our YouTube at HWYT, at HW Hockey YT. All right, Jack, we're going to sign off, man. Happy New Year. It's another year with you. Another great year. Hopefully 2026 is even better.
Damn right, Jim. We're going to see big things, big trades, baby. Happy New Year, everybody.
Samula is just the start, huh? All right, boys and girls. Thank you for hanging out. Happy New Year. Don't forget to keep it high, keep it wide in 2026. We'll see you next year. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching Hockey. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you next time.